On the menu today, we will be going over how to cook elote. First up is going to be our main protein, which is going to be some steak. We'll go ahead and season this with some garlic, salt, and pepper. This is commonly referred to as the Holy Trinity. Once you have your seasoning down, the next important step is to pat it in. You don't just want to leave it resting, you do want to get it into the meat. Again, we'll do the same thing on the other side salt, pepper, and garlic, and go ahead and pat it into the steak. With our dry rub complete on this steak, we're now going to turn our attention to making the actual elote. We will begin with shucking the corn. Now notice here we did not buy a can of corn, but instead opted to get an ear of corn. The reason being is this will just taste better in the final product. The corn will have more texture, be slightly more crunchier. It won't have that watered down effect that a can of corn would have. Once you've shucked your corn, the next step is to go ahead and get the corn off the cob, as you can see that we're doing here. It should be noted that this recipe did call for 3 ears of corn, however I'm only demonstrating one in this video. With all 3 ears of corn fully shucked, it's now time to move to the actual cooking of the corn. If you do look in the pan, notice that the butter is not browning per se, but trying to stay in the golden form. You don't want it to brown and burn the butter, but just melt the butter here. As we keep the corn moving around, now it's time to add our seasonings. We'll begin with some chili powder and move on to some salt. Add in some garlic and onion seasoning, as well as some regular pepper on top. We'll then move to mixing all of this in the bowl so it can get blended properly, as well as continue to cook evenly. I'll leave you to watch the rest of this cook, and I'll see you when it's time for the next step. Now it's time to move the elote from the pan into the bowl where it will be fully constructed. First thing we're going to do is add a little bit more salt, pepper, some onion seasoning, as well as some garlic seasoning, and throw a little bit more chili powder on top. Next, you will see we have 2 decently sized dollops of mayonnaise and sour cream, and this is what will give it its texture. Once all ingredients have been added, we'll then move to the step where we go ahead and mix this until it's in its final form. As you can see here, I will add a little bit of chili powder one more time, as well as go ahead and give a queso fresco finishing on top, roughly about a half to a full handful. This will be completed with one final mix, and technically your elote is ready. Now as you can see here, there is a little more queso fresco going on top, and if this will be served as a larger dish, you can add this for garnish. With our featured dish out of the way, it's now time to move to the main source of protein, which for this video will be steak. As you can see here, we're using the same pan we previously used for the elote. Now one note about throwing steak on a skillet, make sure you do not throw steak onto a cold pan, or really any meat for that matter, as it may stick to the pan. If the pan's warm and you already have melted butter in there, it's more likely to cook without sticking. In this video we will be cooking the steak to a medium rare, and all that means for temperature wise is simply make sure the pan is set to a medium temperature, and then you're going to want to let your steak sit on either side for about 2 minutes give or take. Notice there you did see some basting happening, and this will allow us to take the juices and the butter that is in the pan and really let it fall into the meat as opposed to the meat just sitting on top of it. Once you've cooked your steak for roughly 2 minutes on each side, it will then be time to take the steak off the pan and onto the cutting board. A note here, I would advise letting your steak, or really any meat, sit for 2 to 5 minutes because it will allow the meat to retain the juices better than if you just immediately begin chopping into the meat. The last thing we have to do is plate our meal. First things first, we'll throw the meat on here, a generous portion. Next we'll add a tomato, thinly sliced, along with 2 scoops of our elote. And lastly, a half an avocado, thinly sliced as well. Don't forget to add salt and pepper on the finish, and if you like this, please subscribe.